Wonderful. Okay. Okay. Time for you.
Thank you, Eiko. Thank you very much. Hello, everybody, and welcome to our second session of how to do business in China, how to do business with Chinese traders in relation to international trade settlement. There might be some people who are new here, and I welcome not only the new participants, but the ones who were here yesterday too. Hope that we can have some fruitful time together this afternoon. Yesterday, we started with some kind of introduction to the seminar. We covered the related terms to settlements. We also talked about remittance as a method of settlements. As I told you, remittance is one of the most important method of settlement we have, because if we talk about cooperation with China or Chinese traders, remittance is what they want. I mean, most of them. That doesn't mean that no one in China is open to the use of letter of credit. There are a lot. China is a huge place. So even though we say percentage is low, it means a lot of people already. Then we also talk about collection today, which is also known as documentary collection. So these are the two main methods that we are dealing with today, the letter of credit and then collection. But we need to finalize what we did yesterday. And we have a little case today relating to remittance. The case is on securing your transaction. Securing your transaction, which is very, very important. But before we talk about that case, it is probably important to refresh our memory on several points. Since we are still talking about remittance, we need to be reminded that in remittance, there are three sub-methods. We have what we call DD, demand draft. If I start from the last one that we are not really talking about anymore, but that is the lowest in terms of charges if we are talking about paying, and remittance is closely relating to paying money for our transactions. So it is very low. In terms of security, it has some kind of complication relating to stop payment, which is time consuming. Stop payment means if there is any transaction, you are going through the transaction and then you instantly realize there's a problem, maybe a kind of error in filling some forms. And probably you want to stop there for a while, or you stop completely. So that is because when you stop, probably you even want to have some of your money reimbursed to you. This will take long in DD. Authorization, we said, is when we talk about authentication, seeing whether the document is authentic or not, seeing it, whether it is credible, whether it is fake or not. So that is the method it is using. The time of transfer of funds is slowest, and the means of transfer is mail or carried by the remitter. Somebody has to travel kind of long distance or whatever, then that makes it a little slow. And the other one is mail transfer, which is delivered by means of air mail. And the time for transfer is slow, but it's a little kind of speedier or fast, a little faster than DD. Then it relies on the authorization signature also in terms of the authentication aspect of the transaction. And the security is reliable, but may be the documentation for this transaction might get lost on the way because of the error mail not being perfect, not always secured all the time. As time goes for the transaction, it might create problem. So then the one we were focusing in, which we said is the preference of Chinese, that was TT. It is the method of transfer is using SHIFT all the time, but you can also use telex and cable. SHIFT is it's a kind of instrument used by the Association of Banks, and it is very, very safe in a way that it is encrypted. We explained the encryption yesterday, and it is about changing the message into something that people cannot read. And when it reaches the other part, your interlocutor, when we are talking in a simple way, then the person who is being sent the message to is the one who can decipher, who can decode the message. And that is a bank from one bank, which is probably the importer's bank, sending money to the exporter's bank. Then only the exporter's bank that can decode the language or the communication means that is being used. Then hackers might be not very, very effective most of the time. That's why it is safe. But in certain situations, if you use other methods, there are many, many cases of hackers doing their jobs and breaking into your system, into the bank system. And as we said already, the security is it's quite safe, a lot higher than, the safety is a lot higher than the two other methods. But the charge as well is a little higher than those of the two methods. As I said yesterday, and I think it is universally true, that good things are not always, but almost always expensive. Then we said the Chinese suppliers are into this, because now we are still on the review section. Why are they interested in this more than any others? Because this can put less risk on the supplier, because the buyer or the importer is allowed and is supposed to pay certain money, which is a deposit. As we said yesterday, the standard deposit, or what we call a down payment, is 30%. So in this method, they are allowed to, and it is possible for them to receive that 30%, the money that is paid before even the manufacturing is starting. In other methods that you will see, it's not going to be like that. But when it's not very good for the importer, for the exporter, it can be a good thing for the importer, meaning that if there is any delay being allowed for the importer, that's not good for the exporter, because the exporter is in need of money. In fact, that's somehow the case that we are going to see very soon, the case of day-to-day transaction issues that we are meeting. So here I have a big questions. I mean, I wrote it, I highlighted the question. People often have this in their mind or in their facing when they are facing some situation. Our supplier asks for payments to be sent to a different company. There are a lot of cases for, probably a lot, we're not exaggerating, but there are some cases relating to remittance. But this one is one of the most kind of alarming question that people ask. And it's possible, not only in China, but probably somewhere else too. So when we talk about this, we are not supposed to think that, well, okay, this reveals what China is. It's not. In Mexico, in the US, and whatever, it's a case. But since we are talking about the Chinese environment, then this is what I singled out as a case apart from others that we will see in the future if you are in need of that. So the issue here is then paying private accounts for account of non-matching beneficiary. Non-matching beneficiary means the beneficiary is the supplier, but in some cases probably the supplier himself is requiring a payment that is not on his name or not on his company's name. So the question is it a problem? Is it a problem? The simple answer is, as we see in my slide here, not always a problem. Not always a problem, but not always safe either. So that's why we're talking about it. Now, before you know that it is not a problem or a problem, we need to know the reasons for this, okay? So collecting payments, as we see here, and doing all the export procedures under another company might be easier for the company who is saying this. And I'm telling you, it's not common, but it's even though I said challenges in international trade is common, this one is not really common, but it's the most common question. All right, it's not the most common case, but the most common question that is raised. So then collecting, as we said, the export procedures under some other companies probably is easier. That's one. Another thing is they might not have an export license. That's why even banks in China, because there are some people who are not really going to a big bank or whatever, or even big banks that are very, very secure. I was talking about Bank of China, for example. They have probably in some ways slower service sometimes, but very, very effective because they require a lot of things. Now, they require license, for example, export license. They require a lot of things, including, certificate of origin, for example, which is somehow a lot of traders might ask question like, this is from this country, and why not forget about certificate of origin? They still want to know whether it was really, really created in here or somewhere else, because that might bite them on the neck later as the transaction is proceeding. And that's one thing. When a company is not having an export license, but they are just famous because locally they are doing a great job. So some companies, before they are going into an expansion, like they have domestic market and then they want to expand overseas, before they really get licensed, they try it. They try the service, like, is it really working for us or not? That's a risk, that's a legal risk, but they do it. And then after some time, they request export license. In that way, they are not going to there is a cancellation of operation later. Like we have the license, but we have to give up this international trade instead of the national one. It happens in business. So you might work with a bank that is very, very strict. That's another way. Then they might have this, or you yourself require this before, even before operating. You might ask, like, do you have any export license? Some people might say, yeah, we're in the process of getting one. And the next question is, when will you get one? Send me a copy of it when you have it. In China, the good thing about business, I guess, is even the license sometimes is sent to a customer, which is not really happening somewhere else, I think. I know that because when we have a bigger transaction in my company, we have to include the license as a document to be given to the client to prove that it's really, really legal and things. There's no secret that much about license. And if you go to an office, yeah, in foreign countries, I call foreign because I'm here in China, that it might happen that you see some license, hanging on the office, but it's very, very common in China. Even a small, let's say, very small restaurant, for example, they have their license posted on the wall or things. So it's not really a secret. You can take a picture or whatever. They never have that as an issue. But in other countries, I said, people even use that license to cheat on you. Like they have your license, they sign something and they said, this is you, yet it is not you. So that's something that we need to know. Next, the other reason is they might use another account. Let's say, for example, Hong Kong administrative region. Hong Kong is still China. That's why I'm saying administrative region. Some people are thinking of avoiding declaration of sales in the mainland, for example. They might go with Hong Kong office. It's not often, again, but mind you, if there is something like that, then don't do it. Just do it in a legal way. And if you want to do business, even not only you, but the supplier should also follow the law, and then they should not avoid paying taxes. In the world, tax evasion is a fraud and it's crime, but tax avoidance is acceptable. But even tax avoidance, sometimes it can put you into, a big problem. Then it's good to raise that issue. Now, then the solution. When we talked about the problem, we already relates to the solution a little bit, but here we have a kind of a stronger aspects of how to solve the problem. Always insist that the beneficiary matches the supplier name, and the logo, the company logo, should be put somewhere in the document that is going to be used. Okay, so there are some branches and kind of parent company. You need to know that as well. Then if you did business with the parent company, insist that all the documents will be from the parent company, not from the kind of branch or whatever. If it has to be so, ask for the reason, because it can be a problem when you have a refund. It can slow down the refund process if there is any. Why? Because the branch, the mother company, the parent company is where you are doing business with, and then the refund, because the paper is from the branch, then the branch is saying like, okay, it's not us who is supposed to refund you, but the mother, the parent company, the headquarters. and then the headquarters are like, they are trying to arrange things, transfer of name or whatever, it can really be time consuming, transfer of name and responsibility like that. So ask, the next point is ask both companies, the supplier A, for example, and the one collecting payments, because as we said before, one company is saying like, okay, we are the one who is giving you the goods, but the payment is done by the other company to facilitate their problem, to get them out of their problems. And they might even tell you that in this way it's cheaper because you don't pay this and they don't pay that. Then ask those two companies jointly sign a kind of a declaration, okay? So company A and company B are signing, giving some kind of testimony that we are one. So there's no follow-up of request later that company A was supplying and not getting paid, but company B is getting paid. Then it's possible this way, okay? It's possible. And this is what we need to do. Jointly sign and stamp the document of declaration. And if they are not ready to sign or do this, then there shouldn't be any deal, because probably even a scam is involved. Then you don't go that direction. Now, apart from that, avoiding deception in TT payment, we also have the followings. Buyers can be scammed by hackers who send invoice with their own bank account. The information is relating to that being changed. And as we said before, always insist that the bank is using SWIFT, like Bank of China or Commercial Bank of China, or those big banks. All right. Do not start any sales. That's another point that you need to remember. Do not start any sales negotiation before you receive a pro forma invoice. Pro forma invoice is not a commercial invoice. It's just containing about your order and what the company who is supplying goods are having. All right. What they have is prescribed on the pro forma invoice. But it's an invoice before becoming a real invoice later. The real invoice is the commercial invoice that you will have probably even after payment. But before payment, in some countries, even pro forma invoice is not stamped, just paper, and then you see what it is and stuff. And then when some people have it like that, and they just use the same thing for the commercial invoice, but of course it's stamped and then it's signed and it's written, the debt is being paid, or what they expect you to pay is there, and it is confirmed. So negotiation is to know what's on the invoice, the pro forma invoice. Everything is there, because pro forma invoice is really relating to the basic requirements of the supplier. It's not taking into consideration what the buyer is in need of, but that consideration is coming after negotiation. You are saying like, okay, the size of this is like this. I want it to be bigger, but not changing a price. So that is negotiation. When you are changing their mind from one thing to another, and something that they might not really be willing to accept at the beginning, but they eventually make decision on, that is the negotiation. Now, another thing is, do not pay 30% deposit before you have signed and stamped the sales contract. If anyone is asking you, because as you said, in a standard way in China, 30% deposit, 70% balance to be paid at the end. That's where it is, okay? We talked about it yesterday. If you don't go with that, maybe you are not willing to do business in China. But if you are lucky, you might get very good terms, better than that. But don't pay this 30% before you have signed and stamped a sales contract. Sales contract is not, it's not a document of title. It says, you know, instruments. It's not like a bill of lading. Bill of lading, as soon as you have it without signing anything, you have the original and what you have is yours. But in the contract, it's not like that. So you don't, you're not, you know, no one should be afraid of signing any contract before any payments or before receiving any payments or whatever. Yeah, before receiving, before sending 30% because of deposit, what I was saying there is like, don't pay the other balance, you know, before this, but before the stamped contract, then the 30% is not a good way of doing business to pay it. Pay it after. But of course, you still mind the fact that as soon as you have signed a contract, your supplier in China is not going to start any production if that's what you have in the contract without this payment. And it's on you. Like the problem is on you if you don't accept that too. Next, do not give any green light for production until you are sure that they know what you want. Sample product. Business, a lot of people go with the concept of time is money. As soon as the contract is signed, and then you are tempted to talk about what you want, they start production, okay? But when it's finished, this is where you realize that, oh, this is not what I was asking. You did it in haste. Why? Because you are not clear with the instruction. You are not doing it formally. Formally is, it's not just be done on a phone call. Like, oh, I want the bucket to be oval and then the color is blue and, you know, this and that. So you describe the material, you describe the shape of it, you describe everything in written documents, which is signed by you even. That's part of the documentation you have for international trade, and send it. And then you get confirmation from them. They said, understand what you want. And then you go ahead, you tell them, you give them green light, like, okay, start the production. And they start. Next, do not pay the balance 70% if you have not completed, in some ways, quality inspections or receive product test results certificate. Not every product that is in need of these quality inspections, but especially those products that are made standardized. There are standardized products that are almost always the same. But if, of course, if you are dealing with prototype products, then you really need to even say that right from the beginning. This is the process. Later, I need to have a kind of quality inspection of the products. When I was working at Lenovo, there is one department in charge of quality inspections and filing all the papers. And the quality inspection it had to be approved. If the product was sent to Europe, it has to be, the sample had to be sent to Europe, and then there's approval from there, approval from the local government, and approval from this department. So those three, for example, are all together, and then they have mass production after that. So here, basically, if you read literature, if it is there, sometimes it is not there. No books talk about this often, but the quality inspection is, even the company itself can do it if you are not really strict about it. But as long as they do it, they have the paper, you can have the paper, and you can hold them accountable later. because it's given by them, but the company is there always, then you can even sue or whatever you want. So, but this has to be clear from the beginning that you are requiring this. Otherwise, companies do not accept it because it can be time consuming. If they are to be paid later, then they would not accept. But since we are talking about remittance, then maybe there is a very, very clear time that is when you are paying them. Next, before the last on this slide, do not pay in full 100% at the beginning. It means if deposit is required, because some people who are, especially those who are new in business, they are really, really enthusiastic about things and having very, very, compulsive and, well, you need money and I give you all the money I have now before production. Probably not really good way to do business. Why? Because it takes incentive. Like everybody needs what we call motivation to move ahead and finish something as soon as possible with the required quality that we are having in our mind. So when you are paying 100%, some people or some companies are not really motivated anymore. You have taken their incentive, especially for remake later. If you ask them to remake something because there's a problem, you have to repair some defective items, you have to see, you see some non-compliant items, and then you want them to address that, then it might be, it's done, but it's delayed because they want to work for some other people. Now, I'm not only talking about China. I have seen that even in my country, once you are paying in full instead of just paying half or a little of the transaction, then somebody is, you call them often, they are never answer your phone because they are busy with new clients, new customers. Okay, now the last part on this, yes, the last part on this, after you have gone through some important process, this is very simple but important. Nowadays, we use phones and we use computers, whatever. Well, computer have been there for many years, but take a screenshot or get a digital copy and send it to your supplier as a reminder. Yesterday, we were talking and this is what we were deciding or whatever. So if you send that after 2 months, then it's really working as a reminder rather than, 2 days, for example, and probably they have lost, but keep it. If they lose it, then you go back and this is what we talked about. This is what we talked about. So of course, be careful not to micromanage somebody or to harass somebody, in fact, reminding all the time. In China, it's not a problem. I have seen that. Reminding somebody as often as possible, it's not a problem in China. But in some countries, let's say in the US or in Europe or whatever, if you remind them twice, then they say you are disturbing them. I know what you want and just say it once. I'm going to do it. That's the response. So you don't have to be worried about those things in China. You just call it precaution. Right. Now, when we talked about remittance, then remittance is a name and it's a method, but there are some hands-on mechanism or bearing some special names of services or companies that are doing it. Let's say Alibaba, for example. Alibaba is doing this. Alibaba Trade Insurance, for example, precisely. You might have heard of Jack Ma, one of the richest person in the world. He has two types of trading, I guess, Alibaba and Taobao, if I'm not mistaken. Alibaba is international. If you want to buy things from Jack Ma's company and then you use Alibaba, then you get what you want at international, environment with international pricing, of course. But if you are buying something from Taobao, that's national, that's local. What people usually do if they have friends here in China, they ask somebody, this is just in parentheses, just to give you more knowledge on this. They ask somebody in China to buy things on Taobao. Even a lot of times they buy, because trade can take a long time. And then like that, instead of going right away to Alibaba. The reason is in Taobao, locally, the price is lower. And in Alibaba, it's often 3 times the price of the local, the Taobao one. So just, you are lucky that you are having this, probably having this seminar, because that's a little secret, not a secret that is punishable by law, but just giving you some kind of advantage. Okay, because yesterday somebody was asking me to buy something online, and then when we checked on, they bought things on Alibaba, which is, as I said, 3 times the price, but the local price is a lot cheaper, like that, and they are doing trade. So what you can have in mind from this talk is just the international trade, because that is a lot expensive. You don't blame the organization for that. They are the license and everything are expensive. So it is according to that. Things are done according to that. The local ones are not like that. They don't pay as much. So that's the reason. So then there are so many ways to do business in China. If you have guanxi, starting from the big operation and small ones, that's a lot better rather than just relying on yourself. And so to have guanxi, however, is to be nice, to be loyal, to be nice, and then you start and continue doing business. There are others like PayPal. PayPal is very expensive. It's foreigner way of doing it. And NEET, HK is always referring to Hong Kong administrative region. NEET, HK multi-currency accounts, and Payoneer. All these are doing, they are having this remittance apart from something else. Then to end this part, I would like to say to you that many countries have been reliant on remittances, and global remittance grow 7% to $313 billion in 2017 from $429 billion in 2016. It's more or less the same as that, but recently we have this coronavirus and things change a little bit. And the top recipient countries for remittances in that year, in 2017, and in dollar terms, were India, having the transaction of $69 billion, China, $64 billion, and Philippines, $33 billion at that time. So you can see here, even though this statistic is not like yesterday, but it can still tell you that remittance is really, really important, and especially it is popular in developing countries, but in rich countries as well, they really, really exist. So telegraphic transfer, which is remittance, offers no protection by itself, as we have seen, This does not mean that TT is necessarily an unsafe payment method, especially if you are complying with the terms of contract. If you are really, really honest business person, there's no doubt that you can really have a good relationship with Chinese, suppliers using this. Okay. So what are the safer methods at the international level? That's what we're going to have a look at. What are the safer methods for the, let's say, the importer? Then for that, we're talking about the other parts of the seminar, which is